Buzz's Retirement Garage. It's a Saturday and another cool one here in Cleveland. Only about 42 or 3 degrees, so I still got the coat on. Just fed the Blue Jays. Probably hear them in the background, but my political history. I'm going to do this video, and it's going to be the only video I do about this subject. And let me straighten this out. And it was prompted by an email that I got from Jeff, who, it was a nice email. He basically told me what he thought of the past and the present, and it got me to thinking. And I answered him that I have a different political party now, and I'll tell you what that is. I have a different political party, and maybe I got to get everybody to join my party. So it's not independent, but it's a different party, which I'll tell you about. But anyway, my history, and I remember way back when, right? As growing up when I was young, my stepfather used to always watch the news. It was only channel, well, in our case, 3, 5, and 8, which was NBC, ABC, and CBS, right? And then they had PBS and some other stations. I think most of us remember those times, right? Remember the black and white TV and how big a deal it was when things started coming out in color, right? And I remember him watching the scenes from the Vietnam War, because his son was in the Vietnam War, and my stepfather, was in World War II. He was in the 101st Airborne, and he was actually wounded. He had a big scar under his arm here where he was shot. I don't remember all the details, and even if he told us the details, I don't remember them. But I just now looking back, him watching the war, the Vietnam War, and what was going on with that, I'm sure troubled him quite a bit. But politically, what was I, 7, 8 years old? I mean, I didn't know. Kent State, I think that was in May 4th. That was in the news a lot because, I'm in Ohio. So Kent State, the National Guard coming out and killing some students was a big deal. But, politically, I don't remember who was in office. I mean, at the time, I was oblivious to a lot of that. Probably because I was young. And it didn't matter to me. It just didn't matter. It was there. It was someone else. It was not in my backyard. So it didn't matter. And then I think the first time I heard a president's voice or remember hearing a president's voice was after the moon landing in '69 in July. And I remember at some point Nixon talking to them, either when they were on the moon or when they came back. I don't remember the details, but that was the first time I put a voice to a name. So that was President Nixon. And then, of course, Watergate was, real big in the news. And I just remember as I'm growing up, I didn't vote. I didn't vote in presidential elections. Now, remember, back then, too, I was working probably 10, 11 hours a day, and I don't remember being able to vote days ahead or mail-in. If it happened in the 70s or 80s, I don't remember. But I just remember when I was working that I couldn't get off, or I could get off work, but I was working overtime. Had a young family, right? So I took every minute of overtime I could get. And I wouldn't get out of work. I would get there by 7 a.m. And polls probably opened at 6, right? Maybe even 5, but 6. But I never went there because I was one of those guys that got to work like at 6:45. So I wasn't one of the early birds. So I didn't go vote in the morning. And then I think I worked till like 5 o'clock or 5:30 p.m. on many days. So the last thing I was thinking about was, hurrying up and going to vote. So I just didn't when I was younger. And I just looked up. I asked AI. I asked one of the AI bots. I said, "Hey, can I find out when is there a history of my voting?" And they said, the AI thing said yes, and gave me, to the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections, which I didn't know this, but they actually have, it doesn't say who you voted for, but it just says you were there to vote. And I remember this and why I voted when I did, because, and it matched on the voting record too. It was the first record that was shown there. And it was in 1993, I believe it was. And I think that was the first time I voted in a presidential election, which was kind of interesting to me that, and maybe I did it before that, but it just didn't have a record of it. But I didn't vote till 1993, I guess, according to the records. And I remember growing up, I was working in the factories for 47 years, basically. And I was a UAW card holder, United Auto Workers, and I worked in the automotive and consumer fields for the first 21 years of my young life. And, back then, you were a Democrat. You voted Democrat because you were a UAW person. And in 1993, I think it was, there was a guy running who was telling us in the automotive industry that you're in trouble, that you are going to be in big trouble. And that was Ross Perot. And we all remember Ross Perot, the old big sucking sound of all the manufacturing going to overseas or across the border to Mexico or Canada. And that was the first time that on record, and I remember this, that I voted. And I voted for Ross Perot. And many of our UAW members voted for Ross because they wanted to save manufacturing. I remember that. It's almost as clear as day. Now, of course, he didn't win. But, as the years went on, I voted, I think, in just about every election. And I voted different ways because I'm sort of in the middle of the road. I'm sort of one of the guys that I look at things and I try to see what's best for me and my family and for the country. So I voted different ways. Sometimes I didn't vote. But what I've seen now, and if you're on the right, you hated the last 4 years with a passion. And if you're on the left, you hate the current administration with a passion. There's no middle ground anymore. So I started my own party. I got my own party plates. No, I started my own party. And you may not like this, but, and I even brought my hat because it's got blue and it's got red. I started the IDC party. And I'm serious about that. The IDC party, the I don't care. Now, before you go, oh, he doesn't care about our country. He doesn't care about what happens. No. Don't get excited. The I don't care party is a party of retirees who have done their due diligence, have worked and voted and made their peace and said what they're going to say and did their protests or not, who came out and tried to help with what their ideology was at the time and tried to push that through. In retirement, I don't care because I want, and I've said this so many times on my videos, and it's so important to me, more important than anything. I want a stress-free retirement. I don't want any. Zero. The big old zero. I don't want any stress. Watching what's going on in the past decade, past 2 decades, is enough to just make you just want to, just not give up, but with the constant barrage of news media from the left and from the right, it's really hard to tell who's telling the truth anymore. It's hard to tell what's right and what's wrong. So I have divorced myself from all of that stress. And it's worked for me. It really has. And if I want to, and I'm not like, I don't disassociate myself from it. I still, if I'm curious about something, what I do now, and I just did it a little while ago, I will actually look up like House resolution bills. I'll actually look them up because all that stuff is public information. And I read through the bill myself. So when one party says this or one party says that, I look at the bill, bring it up on my laptop in the quiet of the night, and I read through it. And yeah, a lot of it's, sometimes it can be kind of mundane and boring, but I look and see exactly what the bill says at the time. And they have amendments to the bills, and it's all documented in the government system. And that's how I get my news. That's how I get what's really happening, is by actually reading the bill. And anything that's controversial, that's what I'll go to if I'm curious. Now I'm not very curious, but I just want the truth, and that, to me, that's the best way to get it, is to read the bill. So instead of listening to the noise. So I am in the IDC party. It's not that I don't care about what's happening in the country, but if you just think back of what I just said before. You had Vietnam, Korea, Vietnam, 9/11. I mean, you had a lot. Iraq. My brother was in Iraq, or I should say, he was in Desert Storm with the Air Force. There is always going to be drama. Always. You're never going to get away from drama. The thing that you have to decide as a retiree is how much do you want to invest yourself into the day-to-day of politics, and how much of the remaining part of your life that you want to just relax, as they say, be fat, dumb, and happy. Because I'll take fat, dumb, and happy any day of the week. Trust me. So that's my party, the IDC party. The IDC is a little bit red. It's a little bit blue. And it has a logo of the Guardians on it. Sports above politics. And preservation of body before politics, okay? Keep that stress away. Watch what you need to watch on TV or on your phone, your internet, your apps. Do what you need to do, but at the end of the day, remember that stress-free life is fantastic. We'll see you guys tonight at 7. Saturdays at 7, we do a live show. You can bring up your comments there. Again, no politics. And I will shoot this video to anybody that asks me about politics forevermore. They will get this video. Buzz's Retirement Garage. Have a good weekend.